Helen Carter stood in her bedroom holding a metal box she had never seen before. Her husband, Robert, was dead. 3 days dead. The funeral ended 2 hours ago. She found the box in the back of his closet, behind his winter coats, behind the old suitcases. It was locked. Helen shook it. Something moved inside. Papers, maybe. Something light. Why would Robert hide a locked box from her? They were married for 30 years. 30 good years, or so she thought. Her hands were shaking. She sat down on the bed where Robert died in his sleep, the bed where they spent 10,000 nights together. If you want to know what secrets people hide, hit that like button and subscribe. You won't believe what happens next. Helen looked at the lock. It was small, silver, the kind you need a tiny key to open. She searched his nightstand. Nothing. She searched his dresser drawers. Just socks and old watches and reading glasses. Where would Robert keep a key? Her daughter Amy called from downstairs. "Mom, are you okay up there?" "I'm fine," Helen lied. She was not fine. Her husband was gone, and now she was holding a box full of secrets. Amy came upstairs anyway. She always did. "Mom, people are asking about Dad's things, his tools, his books. Should we—" Amy stopped. She saw the box. "What's that?" Helen didn't know what to say. "I found it in the closet." "Can you open it?" "It's locked." Amy took the box. She shook it too. "Did Dad ever mention this?" "Never." "That's weird," Amy said. She looked at her mother. "Do you want me to break it open?" Helen thought about it. Part of her wanted to throw the box away, bury it with Robert, forget she ever found it. But another part of her needed to know. "Not yet," Helen said. "Let me look for the key first." Amy handed the box back. "Okay, but Mom, if Dad hid something, maybe it's private. Maybe you shouldn't look." Helen almost laughed. "Amy, I was his wife for 30 years. What could he possibly hide from me?" Amy left. Helen heard her go back downstairs to deal with the visitors. Helen put the box on the bed. She stared at it. "What are you hiding, Robert?" She searched everywhere. The garage, the car, the kitchen drawers. Nothing. Then she remembered Robert's office, the small room in the basement where he paid bills and kept files. She went down there. It smelled like him, like coffee and old paper. She opened his desk, found folders, tax returns, insurance papers, medical records. Then she saw a small envelope taped to the bottom of the top drawer. Her heart beat faster. She pulled the envelope free, opened it. Inside was a tiny silver key. Helen sat down in Robert's chair. The key felt heavy in her hand. This was it, the moment everything could change. She could still throw it away. She could burn the box. She could choose not to know. But Helen Carter was not that kind of woman. She needed the truth. She went back upstairs, locked the bedroom door, sat on the bed with the box and the key. Her hands shook as she put the key in the lock. It turned. The box opened. Inside were letters, dozens of them, and photographs. Helen picked up the first photo. It showed Robert, younger Robert, maybe 20 years ago. He was smiling. His arm was around a woman Helen had never seen before. The woman was pretty. Brown hair, bright smile. She looked happy. Robert looked happy too. Helen's chest felt tight. Who was this woman? She picked up another photo. Robert and the same woman. They were at a beach. They looked like a couple. Helen's hand started shaking harder. She picked up a letter. It was addressed to Robert at a P.O. box, not their home address, a different address. She opened it. "My dearest Robert," it said, "the kids miss you. Tommy asked when you're coming back. I told him soon. I always tell him soon, but I'm tired of waiting. 30 years, Robert. When are you finally going to choose us?" Helen stopped breathing. The kids, Tommy, 30 years? She read it again, then again. This woman thought Robert was coming back to her. This woman had kids with Robert. She grabbed more letters. They all said the same thing. Different words, same message. The kids need you. When will you leave her? I love you. I've always loved you. Every letter was signed Sarah. Helen found more photos. Robert with 2 children, a boy and a girl, at birthday parties, at graduations, at Christmas. Robert with a whole other life. Robert with a whole other family. Helen's vision went blurry. She couldn't breathe right. Her whole body felt cold. Who was Sarah? Who were these children? Did Robert have another wife, another family, for 30 years? While he was sleeping next to Helen every night? While he was kissing her goodbye every morning? While he was saying, "I love you" at dinner? He was living a second life. Helen wanted to scream. She wanted to throw the box across the room. She wanted Robert to be alive so she could ask why. But Robert was dead, and he took his answers with him. She picked up the most recent letter. It was dated 2 weeks before Robert died. "Robert, I can't do this anymore. You promised you'd tell her. You promised you'd finally be honest, but you never do. I'm giving you 1 more month. Tell Helen the truth, or I will." Helen read the last line 3 times. Tell Helen the truth, or I will. Sarah knew Helen's name. Sarah knew about her, and Sarah was planning to contact her. Helen stood up. Her legs felt weak. She walked to the window, looked outside at the quiet street. Her whole marriage was a lie. But there was more. Helen knew there was more. She went back to the box, dug deeper. At the very bottom was a folded piece of paper. She opened it. It was a marriage certificate. Robert James Carter married Sarah Ann Wilson. The date was 45 years ago, 5 years before Robert married Helen. Helen's stomach dropped. If Robert married Sarah first and the certificate was here, did that mean? She grabbed her phone, searched online. What happens if you marry someone while still married? The answer came up fast. The second marriage isn't legal. Helen sat back down. She wasn't Robert's wife. She was never Robert's wife. Everything was a lie. Helen couldn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The box sat on the nightstand. She had locked it again, put the letters back inside, put the photos back, but she couldn't put the truth back. Robert had another wife, another family, for 30 years, and Helen was never really his wife at all. The marriage license they signed, the wedding at the courthouse, all of it meant nothing, because Robert was already married. Helen got up at 5 in the morning. She made coffee. Her hand still shook. Amy came down at 7. "Mom, you look terrible. Did you sleep?" "No." "What's wrong?" Helen wanted to tell her, but how do you tell your daughter that her father lived a double life, that her whole childhood was built on lies? "I'm just tired," Helen said. Amy didn't believe her, but she didn't push. "I'm going to start cleaning out Dad's office today. Do you want to help?" "Not today." After Amy left for the basement, Helen pulled out her phone. She looked at the last letter again, the one from Sarah. Sarah Ann Wilson. Helen typed her name into Facebook. Dozens of results came up. She scrolled through them, looking for a woman around her age, looking for someone who might live nearby. Then she found her. Sarah Wilson lives in Columbus, Ohio, just 2 hours away. Helen clicked on the profile. The privacy settings were loose. She could see photos. Sarah was older now, gray in her hair, lines around her eyes, but it was definitely the same woman from the photos. And there were more pictures, recent ones. Sarah with a young man, so proud of my son Tommy on his new job. Sarah with a young woman, my daughter Katie's art show this weekend. Tommy, Katie, Robert's children. Helen's stomach hurt. She scrolled further back, found a photo from 2 months ago, Sarah standing in front of a house, finally painting the living room. Wish Robert was here to see it. People had commented, "Sorry for your loss. He was a good man. He's watching over you." Helen wanted to throw up. These people thought Sarah was Robert's widow. They thought Sarah was mourning her husband. They didn't know about Helen, just like Helen didn't know about Sarah. Helen took a screenshot of Sarah's address. It was public on her profile, 1247 Oak Street, Columbus. She stood up, grabbed her purse, grabbed her car keys. "Amy," she called down to the basement, "I'm going out for a while." "Where?" "I need to run an errand." She was in the car before Amy could ask more questions. Helen drove to Columbus. The whole 2 hours her mind raced. What would she say to Sarah? What would Sarah say to her? Would Sarah even answer the door? Helen almost turned around 5 times, but she kept driving. She had to know. She had to hear it from Sarah's mouth. Helen found the house at noon. It was small, blue paint, a flower garden in front. Robert probably planted those flowers. Helen sat in her car across the street, watching, waiting. What if Robert's children were inside? What if they answered the door? What would she tell them? Helen took a deep breath, got out of the car, walked up to the front door. She knocked. Footsteps inside. The door opened. Sarah stood there. She looked exactly like her photos. Tired, sad, older. She stared at Helen. "Can I help you?" Helen's mouth went dry. "Are you Sarah Wilson?" "Yes." "I'm Helen Carter." Sarah's face went pale. She grabbed the doorframe like she might fall. "You're Helen?" "Yes." They stood there looking at each other. 2 women who loved the same man. 2 women who thought they were his wife. Sarah stepped back. "You should come inside." Helen followed her into the house. It smelled like vanilla candles. The furniture was old but clean. Photos covered the walls. Photos of Robert, everywhere. Robert with Sarah, Robert with the kids, Robert at barbecues and holidays and regular family dinners. Helen felt like she was in a museum of someone else's life. Sarah sat down on the couch. "I was going to call you after the funeral. I didn't know how." Helen sat in a chair across from her. "How long did you know about me?" "From the beginning," Sarah said quietly. "Robert told me about you 3 months after you got married." Helen's heart dropped. 3 months? He said it was a mistake. He said he was going to tell you the truth and come home, but he never did. "Why didn't you stop him? Why didn't you tell me?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I tried once. I called your house 10 years ago. Robert answered. He begged me not to say anything. He said it would destroy you. He said he needed more time." "More time for what?" "I don't know." Sarah broke into tears. "He kept saying he would fix it. He kept promising. But 30 years went by, and he never fixed anything." Helen felt dizzy. "Did you know he died?" "Yes. Tommy saw the obituary online. It listed you as his wife." Sarah wiped her eyes. "That's when I knew Robert was never coming back." Helen looked around the room again. "Where are your children now?" "At work. They don't know I'm talking to you. They don't know you exist." What did Robert tell them about himself? That he worked long hours, that his job took him away, that he loved them but couldn't always be here. Sarah laughed bitterly. They grew up thinking their father was a traveling salesman. They never knew he had another family, another house, another wife. Helen felt sick. How did he do it? How did he live 2 lives? He was careful. He told you he had business trips. He told us he had work in another city. He kept us separate. He made sure we never overlapped. But the money, Helen said. How did he support both families? Sarah looked uncomfortable. He had 2 jobs, one you knew about, one you didn't. Helen thought about their finances. Robert always handled the money. He always said things were tight, that they needed to be careful. But he was sending money to Sarah, to his other children. Helen's whole body felt heavy. Why did you stay? Why did you let him do this? Because I loved him, Sarah whispered, and because he was the father of my children, and because I kept hoping he would choose us, that he would finally be honest and come home for good. But he never did. No, he never did. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Helen asked the question that had been eating at her since last night. Did you remain legally married to him? Sarah nodded. We never divorced. Robert said divorce was too complicated, too expensive, too risky. Which means my marriage to him was never legal. No, it wasn't. Helen stood up. She felt like the room was spinning. 30 years of her life built on a lie. Sarah stood too. Helen, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't help, but I'm sorry. Helen walked to the door, put her hand on the knob, then stopped. Did he love you? Sarah's voice was quiet. I think he loved both of us, in his own broken way. Helen opened the door, started to leave. Then Sarah said something that made Helen freeze. Helen, wait. There's something else you need to know. Helen turned around. Sarah looked scared. Robert left something for you. He gave it to me 6 months ago. He made me promise to give it to you if anything happened to him. What is it? Sarah went to a closet, pulled out a large envelope. She handed it to Helen. I haven't opened it, but it's heavy, and Robert said it would explain everything. Helen took the envelope. Her name was written on the front in Robert's handwriting. What's in it? I told you, I don't know, but Robert said you deserved the truth, the whole truth. Helen looked at the envelope, then at Sarah, then back at the envelope. What else could Robert possibly have to confess? Helen sat in her car outside Sarah's house. The envelope was on her lap, heavy, thick, sealed. Her hands were shaking again. What else could Robert have hidden? What else could he possibly confess? She drove back home in a fog, didn't remember the highway, didn't remember the exit, just drove. When she got home, Amy was waiting in the kitchen. Mom, where were you? I was worried. Helen couldn't look at her. I had to take care of something. What's that? Amy pointed at the envelope. Something your father left. Amy's face changed. She knew something was wrong. Mom, what's going on? Helen sat down at the kitchen table, put the envelope in front of her. Amy, I need to tell you something about your father. What? Helen took a deep breath. Your father had another family, another wife, 2 other children for our entire marriage. Amy stared at her. What are you talking about? It's true. I met her today. Her name is Sarah. She lives in Columbus. No. Amy shook her head. Dad wouldn't do that. He loved you. Maybe he did, but he loved both of us, and he lied to us for 30 years. Amy's eyes filled with tears. Do I have siblings? Yes, a brother and a sister, Tommy and Katie. They don't know about us either. Amy put her head in her hands. I can't believe this. I know. They sat there for a long time, not talking, just crying. Finally, Amy looked at the envelope. What's in it? I don't know. Sarah gave it to me. She said your father left it, that it would explain everything. Open it. Helen's hands shook as she tore the envelope open. Inside were papers, legal documents, bank statements, and a letter. Helen pulled out the letter first. It was in Robert's handwriting. My dearest Helen, it said. She read it out loud so Amy could hear. If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you know the truth about Sarah and the kids. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I'm sorry for everything. I met Sarah when I was 23. We got married young. had 2 kids fast, but I wasn't ready. I was scared, so I ran. I moved to a new city, started over, met you, fell in love with you. I should have told you about Sarah before we got married, but I was a coward. I thought I could leave that life behind. But Sarah found me, 6 months after our wedding. She was desperate. The kids needed money. She needed help. I couldn't turn my back on them. They were my responsibility, my children. So I started sending money. Then I started visiting. Then I had 2 lives. I told myself I would fix it. I would choose one family. But I couldn't. I loved you both. I loved all my children. I know that sounds selfish. It is selfish, but it's the truth. I'm sorry I wasn't braver. I'm sorry I wasn't honest. I'm sorry I wasted 30 years of your life. The documents in this envelope show everything: my real estate, my savings, my life insurance. I own 3 rental properties. You didn't know about them. I bought them with my second job, the one you didn't know about. Those properties are worth almost $2 million. The insurance policy is worth another $500,000. I've left instructions. Half goes to you and Amy, half goes to Sarah and her kids. I know this doesn't fix anything. I know money can't heal what I broke, but I wanted you to know that I tried to take care of everyone, even if I did it in the worst possible way. Helen, you deserved better. You deserved a man who could be honest, who could be brave, who could choose. I was never that man. I'm sorry. Love, Robert. Helen put the letter down. Amy was crying hard now. Dad was a liar. Yes, everything was fake. Not everything, Helen said quietly. The memories were real. The love was real. It was just shared. How can you defend him? I'm not defending him. I'm just trying to understand. Helen looked at the legal documents. Robert was telling the truth. 3 rental properties, all paid off, worth almost $2 million, plus the insurance policy, plus their house, plus their savings. Robert had been building wealth for years, secretly, for both families. Amy wiped her eyes. What are you going to do? Helen didn't know. She looked at the papers, at the letter, at everything Robert left behind. She thought about Sarah, about Tommy and Katie, about the life they had without knowing the truth. She thought about her own life, 30 years with a man who was only half there. Helen picked up her phone, called Sarah. Hello? It's Helen. I opened the envelope. What was in it? Everything. Property, money, insurance, instructions to split it all 50-50. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Robert always worried about money. Guess that's why. Sarah, I need to ask you something. Okay. Do your kids know about me now? No, I haven't told them yet. I don't know how. Helen took a deep breath. I think we should meet, all of us. You, me, your kids, my daughter. We should meet and talk. Sarah sounded surprised. You want to meet them? They're Robert's children. That makes them family, even if it's complicated. Sarah, you don't have to do that. You don't owe us anything. I know, but Robert spent 30 years keeping us apart. Maybe it's time we stopped hiding. Sarah started crying. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Yes, okay, yes. Helen hung up, looked at Amy. We're going to meet them next week, your brother and sister. Amy looked shocked. Mom, are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Why? Helen thought about it. Because Robert spent his whole life building walls between me and Sarah, between you and his other kids, between the truth and the lies. I'm tired of walls. But they're strangers. So were we once, to Robert, and he chose to love us anyway. Maybe we can choose to know each other, not for him, for us. Amy was quiet. Then she nodded. "Okay, I'll meet them." Helen looked around the kitchen, the home she shared with Robert for 30 years. Every memory was tainted now. Every moment had a shadow. But she was still here, still alive, still breathing. Robert was gone. His lies were exposed. His secrets were out. And now Helen had a choice. She could spend the rest of her life angry, bitter, feeling cheated. Or she could take what Robert left behind and build something new, something honest. She picked up the legal documents, the properties, the money, the insurance. "Amy, I'm going to accept Robert's plan, 50-50, fair split." "You're really going to share Dad's money with them?" "Yes, because it's right, because those kids are innocent, because Sarah spent 30 years waiting for a man who never came home." Helen stood up, walked to the window, looked outside at the quiet street. "Your father made choices, bad choices, selfish choices, but I get to make my own choices now." "What are you choosing, Mom?" Helen turned around, looked at her daughter. "I'm choosing to move forward. I'm choosing to know the truth. I'm choosing to meet the family your father kept hidden. And I'm choosing to forgive him." "How can you forgive him?" "Because holding on to anger won't bring him back, and it won't change what happened. All it will do is poison whatever time I have left." Amy hugged her. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too." That night, Helen put the box away, the letters, the photos, the secrets. She didn't throw them away. They were part of the story now, part of the truth. But she didn't need to look at them anymore. She knew who Robert was, a man who loved 2 families, a man who couldn't choose, a man who tried to live 2 lives and ended up lying to everyone. But she also knew who she was. Helen Carter, 62 years old, a woman who thought she knew her husband, a woman who discovered the truth after he died, a woman who chose honesty over anger, a woman who chose family over bitterness, a woman who chose to move forward. Next week, Helen would meet Tommy and Katie. She would sit across from them and see Robert in their faces. It would be hard, maybe impossible, but Helen was done hiding, done pretending, done living in Robert's lies. She was going to face the truth, all of it, and somehow she was going to build a life worth living, even after everything fell apart. The end.